magic of live performance at the Aurora Public Library. And I have to tell you, this is the first live performance we've had since COVID hit us, and I am so very excited to be welcoming everybody back to the living room. Today we're going to be celebrating Culture Days. Yeah, absolutely. Let's give them a hand on that. Today we're celebrating Culture Days and One Book, One Aurora with a performance of the Butterfly Lovers Concerto brought to us by the York Chamber Ensemble. The York Chamber Ensemble has been bringing the excitement of classical music to York Region since 2001. And in 2019, the ensemble welcomed Michael Barrett as its music director. The York Chamber Ensemble is a gem of world-class talent, and we are so very privileged to have them in our own community. I will now call upon Michael to present a short artist talk on what we're going to be experiencing at today's concert. Michael, it's yours.
Thank you so very much. I'm Michael Barrick, Music Director of the York Chamber Ensemble, and it's my pleasure and of course the musicians' pleasure to be here with you in the community and to be a part of this great event. We've been planning it for a while, and it's so great to do these sort of collaborations, and I'm so excited to collaborate once again with the Aurora Public Library. And this year, specifically collaborating with this One Book, One Aurora festival that really inspired the program today. So thank you very much to Linda Rufang for writing her novel, Swimming Back the Trout River. Now, music has been around forever, I think, for a very long time, ever since, people have been beating sticks, drumming drums, singing melodies. And it's really amazing how well music has been documented throughout the centuries, the millennia, and specifically in ancient China as well. There's a legend that Ling Lun was the founder of music in ancient China. And he created these bamboo flutes that sounded of many birds and sounding like even the mythical phoenix. And in this way, he created the 5 notes of the ancient 5-note scale. Nicole, do you mind playing the scale? Those 5 notes, in Western music we call that a pentatonic scale, penta for 5. And they're often used in many folk melody throughout the world. But anyway, whether that legend is true or not, what we do know is that there have been bone flutes found in China dating back 9,000 years. So this tradition of ancient Chinese music has been around for a very, very long time. And throughout those centuries and millennia, Chinese musicians have been developing their style and interesting instruments as well inherent to Chinese music. Like the guzheng is a plucked zither of many chords that is also tuned to this 5-note scale. You have an erhu, which is a bowed stringed instrument with only 2 strings. You have a pipa, which is also sort of like a lute type instrument. Dizi, bamboo flutes, many other instruments as well. And throughout the years, they developed a certain style of playing these instruments as well. And it wasn't until about the 1600s that Western art music had started to influence the music of China. It was actually in 1600 that a Jesuit priest presented to the Ming imperial court a harpsichord. And since that point, little by little, this Western music and that style of playing and instruments started to travel a little bit more around the world and into China. And slowly but surely, in 1910 and 1920s, there was a new cultural revolution in China. And there was a great interest in Western music. And Chinese musicians started to study abroad, study in Europe, learned the Western technique, came back to China, and started to you then saw symphonies popping up in major cities, and you saw a conservatory. In 1927, the Shanghai Music Conservatory was created and founded, and this day, I believe it's actually the fourth top rated school in all of China. And so, obviously, 20s, 30s, a lot of jazz influence, so a lot of that you hear in China in the radio and in the concert halls. And then we get into the 50s, and Chinese composers now thought, well, how can we actually now amalgamate the two, the Eastern music and the Western? And a lot of pieces played on Western-style instruments, like you see here, were composed by Chinese musicians and composers. And probably the most enduring work is the Butterfly Lovers Concerto, composed by two composers. It was co-written by Chen Gan and He Zhanghao. And at that time, it was very much encouraged collaboration and writing together. But their dilemma was this. They didn't want to write just a Western piece of music. They wanted to write music for the people of China. And so their dilemma was, well, how do we make these Western instruments sound like that? And I think they did a pretty good job with the violin. So you'll hear a lot of techniques that has been transported from traditional Chinese playing, from those traditional instruments I mentioned, like erhus, to the violin. So you'll hear these glissandos, which is sort of like sliding from one note to another, a little bit of pitch bends, all inherent to these traditional Chinese instruments. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about the backstory of the piece itself and what inspired the composers, the story that inspired it, because the piece is based on an old Chinese legend. It's basically a Romeo and Juliet story, but it was written back in the 9th century. And it's about this girl who's having problems at home, so she runs away. But when she runs away, she has to dress up as a boy to go to school. And at school, she meets a good friend, this other boy. And they start a good, very nice, friendly relationship, and she ends up falling in love with him. But she can't compromise her disguise because that'll give away the whole thing. And so she ends up running back home. And the boy ends up following her back home. And to his discovery, he realizes she is a girl. But even else that's shocking is that her father has now married her off to a wealthy neighbor. Well, this breaks the heart of the boy, and he dies. So the girl then goes to his grave, asks the gods to open up the grave. There's a big thunderclap. The grave opens. She jumps in, and then the two change into butterflies and are reunited and live the rest of their life happily ever after. Let's get to the music now, but wanted to thank you very much again for joining us this afternoon. And I'll just quickly introduce the musicians of the York Chamber Ensemble. This is sort of a little wind quintet plus cello and keyboard group. Usually we have a little bit of a larger ensemble, depending on the repertoire. But today we have Nicole Welsh on flute. We have Giovanni Alonzi on oboe, Steve Fox on clarinet, Chris Buchner on French horn, Kristen Stewart on bassoon, Barbara Dixon on cello, Abigail Lutoski on keyboard. And please put your hands together to welcome our violin soloist, Joyce Lai.